Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. You know, it's very interesting. I've been listening to a bunch of Mahler recordings lately, new things. I just talked about the Scherchen numbers 1 and 2. And now we have Tomáš Netopil doing number 3 with the Essener Philharmoniker and Bettina Ranch alto, or Ranch, or whatever she's called. I don't really care. She's not that interesting. But here's the bottom line. What a difference between these two performances. In the 1950s, you have Scherchen, whose Mahler is often very approximate and somewhat indifferently played and recorded, but full of character and personality, sometimes perverse, but always interesting. Always, without a doubt, interesting. Then we have Netopil, who has a provincial German orchestra, decent enough. They play very accurately. Everything is in place. He has a good sense of the piece, decent, not full of like shattering insight, but he paces it well. And it's dull as ditch water. Absolutely dreary. There is nothing interesting going on here at all. And I was really kind of surprised because I wanted to like it more. I mean, he pushes the right buttons. He makes the right sounds, but it's so bland. It's chronically, desperately bland. Part of the problem is that the Essener Philharmoniker here, although decent, isn't a great orchestra. They don't have the brass section for this piece. Oh my goodness, not even close. I mean, the trumpets aren't menacing. The chorale at the end, the big chorale at the end, it just doesn't have the amplitude, the necessary amplitude. The horns are good, but not bold enough, especially in the first movement. You know, da 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 ba 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 ba. You know, they got a blast. It's all marked fortissimo. There's none of that here. The dynamic range is too constricted. This is Mahler light. I mean, the marches in the first movement. I mean, the nicest thing about them is the snare drum, very crisp, nice and crisp. Everybody else is just, you know, there's no pizzazz to it. There's no ebullience. There's no menace. There's no, you know, the dark march versus the bright, peppy, spring-like march. None of that's happening. It just doesn't, compared to other performances. I mean, if you never heard the work before, you might not have an issue with this, but it just doesn't move. And there are some real dead spots here, too. You know, in the development section of the first movement, you know, when Mahler's throwing all those march tunes at you with all that vulgar oompa music and whatnot, it's not shocking. It should be shocking. You should be saying, oh my goodness, that's vulgar, or that's trashy. I mean, it's funny trashy. It's Mahler having a wild time, being outrageous. None of it sounds outrageous. It just sounds competent. And that's terrible. Now, the second movement, I mean, it's infallible. It's pretty. It's nice. The contrasting episodes in quicker tempo could really be in quicker tempo. That would be nice. The third movement has some nice woodwind playing. It's okay. But at the big climax there again, you know, when that huge downward rush, I mean, you got 6 horns blasting that out. You can barely hear them. I mean, you can hear them, but you know what I mean. It's like they're, and that downward scale in the brass. I mean, when Haitink did it with the Concertgebouw, also an orchestra known for its nimbleness and lightness of touch, I mean, they just blast out. It's terrifying. You know, none of that's happening here. None of it. Zippo, nothing. You know, the Oehms business with Mrs. Ranch, Bettina Ranch, Ms. Ranch, she's okay. I mean, she's also light toned. You need more of an Earth Mother dark tone for that movement. The bim bom stuff goes fine, although the bells sound a little weird, but that's okay. I mean, it goes nicely, and the finale's boring, really boring. And that big climax at the end, oh, wow, you want to hear the brass really rip, and they just don't. They don't. So what do we have? We have a decent subscription, Mahler 3, that if you went to hear it on the night, you'd think was pretty good. They play really well for who they are, but they aren't great. And Netopil has a good sense of the piece, but nothing particularly exciting or interesting to add. So who needs this? That's the question. I don't. You don't. Keep on listening, friends. Take care.